Welcome back to our live show. Recently, Andrea's talked with an expert in our studio about resolving common workplace challenges and how to navigate making the work experience work for everyone. Here's that previously recorded conversation.
Our next guest is a top Maryland and DC-based attorney who specializes in employment and labor law. Today, she's going to talk about some of the most common problems in the workplace. And we welcome Joyce Smithey back to Virginia this morning. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Yes. So you gave us a really hearty list of the things that you may experience in the workplace. And there were a couple of them for me that stood out especially, and I think our viewers would appreciate knowing a little bit more about. So the first one being inadequate job descriptions. And I don't think that most employers start off thinking, oh, this is going to be completely wrong. But in this day and age, people are asked to do more with less, and sometimes your job may grow. So how do you go back and make sure with your employer that you are up to date?
Sure. So, hopefully you have a job description. That's a good start if you do. And if you're not up to date, you want to look at other people who have the same job title and are supposed to have the same job duties you are, and sort of compare what's on your list to what you're doing, because good job descriptions will help maintain consistency. And if you find that you need to update your description and that it's not consistent with others, it can also be a good stepping stone towards a conversation about a raise.
Definitely. Yeah. And a conversation I've had to have at times. So it's always good to know and to be comfortable with your employer to start the process.
Sure.
The other one being professional development, but I actually wanted to talk a little bit more about training and the onboarding process leading into professional development. So do you find that there's a lack of training or a lack of onboarding processes that really kind of can plague an employee?
Yeah, I think it runs the gamut. Certainly in my practice, I hear constantly from employees who are frustrated that they feel that they're failing in a job because they weren't given the tools to know how to succeed. So I think I run into companies that have wonderful onboarding programs, and it helps with morale. It helps that employee be able to contribute really quickly at a high level of skill. And then you run into employees who are just frustrated, and it leads to retention because they're going to look, if they're not taught how to do this job, they're going to look for one that they can do.
And you talked a little bit about morale as well. So incentives sometimes encourage employee morale. What kind of incentives would you suggest, and why are they so important?
Sure, you'd be surprised. It sometimes doesn't even take that much. Sometimes just remembering to say something positive to your employees. Great job, nice letter that you wrote. That can go so far, and I think we forget that this positive feedback is just as important as anything else we may do during the day. But also, award systems, and again, they don't have to cost a company much, but you set an award for, we see the employees of the month, or you can, in sales forces, we see a lot of times, you'll win a trip or you'll win concert tickets. Things just, a little bit of competition in the workplace can be healthy.
Definitely. And that communication process is very important as well, looking at communication between employees, but also from management on the way down. So especially in this day and age, as we look at safety and security and health in our workplaces, how do you suggest that as an employee, if you don't feel like you're being communicated with, that you make that known in a respectful way?
Sure. I think employees need to feel that they can be heard, up and down the corporate ladder. And if they're not heard, again, you're going to have a retention issue. So if you're having that problem, you need to sit down and you need to schedule an appointment and say, look, written communications aren't here. I need to have an open door policy with this person. There's no place for me to talk to about, for example, incentives or professional development. You have to take charge of that, because if there's not communication, it's going to affect efficiency in the workplace. It's going to affect morale, and eventually will reflect the bottom line.
And you also mentioned performance reviews, and I know sometimes these can have a negative stigma if you feel like you're not being reviewed effectively or fairly. So when do you go back and say, hey, I don't think this is quite right? Or if you're not understanding the process, how do you encourage feedback throughout the year as opposed to just one specific time?
Sure. I'm a huge advocate of making sure that that it's really a 360, that employees get to respond, whether it's good or bad, that they have an opportunity to be heard, respond, and it's good for you to have that feedback as an employer so that you can, sort of see what their response is, because evaluations, their real goal is to help employees perform better. There's this negative stigma that it's discipline or bad reviews just to punish an employee, but really the point is we're here to help you. So I think if you are letting the employee give feedback, that's good, and not bad to have one-on-ones during the year. Maybe for me, with the people who work for me, I try to have lunch with them regularly. I have an open door policy, so you're always getting that feedback, because if you're handing a review to somebody that's shocking, perhaps you've done something wrong there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that insightful information. I think that's going to be key as we go into spring and as people look for their next, opportunities or creating a better opportunity in the job that they're in. Thank you for coming in today, and for more information on this topic or the Smithey Law Firm, we'll post a link on our website by early this afternoon at WTVR.com/VTM. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.